If you asked a child to draw a car with just a few simple curves, there's a good chance they would draw something that looks like this. A round roof like a bubble, soft fenders, tiny hood, friendly face. The Volkswagen Beetle is one of the few cars on Earth that you can recognize instantly, even in a cartoon, even as a toy, even as a shadow. It is not the fastest, the most luxurious, or the rarest. But for millions of people, it was the first car, the family car, the car that carried them to school, to work, to weddings, vacations, and new lives. Today on Timeless Treasures, we dive into the story of the small, air-cooled machine that quietly carried the world on its rounded shoulders. This is the Volkswagen Beetle. The Beetle's story begins in a complicated time. In 1930s Germany, the idea was simple on paper. Create a people's car that ordinary families could afford. A small, efficient vehicle that could carry 4 people at reasonable speed without costing as much as a luxury machine. Engineers sketched out a rear-engined, air-cooled design that would be cheap to build and simple to maintain. But the political forces behind the project were tied to a dark chapter in history. War interrupted production. Factories were damaged. The car's early years were overshadowed by events far bigger than any machine. After the war ended, many expected the Beetle project to disappear. Instead, under new leadership and a different vision, it quietly transformed from a political idea into something else, a practical tool for rebuilding lives. After the war, Europe lay in ruins. Roads, bridges, homes, and factories needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. In that environment, there was not much room for extravagance. People needed something simple, affordable, and dependable. The Beetle, now under new management and a different moral horizon, fit that role almost perfectly. It was small, but it could carry a family. Its air-cooled engine did not need complex radiator systems or expensive coolant. It could tolerate rough roads, cold mornings, and basic maintenance. In the 1950s, production ramped up. Car after car rolled out of the factory in Wolfsburg, heading to customers who did not need a status symbol. They needed a tool to rebuild their daily lives. Piece by piece, the Beetle helped put a continent back on wheels. Look at a classic Beetle, and almost everything about it speaks the same language. The rounded shape helps air flow smoothly over the body. The rear engine layout frees up space at the front for a small luggage compartment. The air-cooled flat-4 engine has few moving parts and no coolant hoses to leak. It is not powerful, but it is tough. Inside, there is no wasted luxury. Thin roof pillars give great visibility. Simple seats, simple switches, and just enough instrumentation tell you what you need to know. Nothing more. Even the chrome bumpers have a kind of cheerful honesty. They are not delicate jewelry. They are real metal bars meant to survive daily life. The Beetle was never about impressing your neighbor. It was about giving you a reliable companion that did not complain. Ironically, that total lack of ego in the design is exactly what made it so lovable. It feels like a friend, not a show-off. The Beetle did not stay a European story for long. As production grew, the little car began to spread to other continents. In South America, it became a common sight on busy city streets. In North America, it arrived as a quirky, affordable alternative to big local sedans. In Africa, Australia, and parts of Asia, it proved it could handle dust, heat, and rough roads with quiet determination. Dealers advertised it as a car that was small on the outside, but surprisingly spacious on the inside. Cheap to run, easy to fix. Soon, you could find Beetles parked next to palm trees, snowbanks, desert roads, and tiny village squares. It became one of the first true global cars. A machine built in one country, but adopted by people everywhere, each writing their own chapter with it. At some point, the Beetle stopped being just a car and turned into a character. It appeared in films, often portrayed as loyal, stubborn, or even alive. It showed up in music videos, album covers, and countless advertisements. Artists painted it, cartoonists exaggerated its curves, toy makers built millions of tiny versions in every color imaginable. For the counterculture of the 1960s and 70s, the Beetle and its cousin, the microbus, became symbols of simplicity and freedom. It was the opposite of a sharp, aggressive sports car. It looked gentle, approachable, almost cute. That friendliness made it easy for people to project feelings onto it. A Beetle could be a family friend, a loyal companion on road trips, or even a silent witness to someone's entire youth. Few cars have been loved as characters the way the Beetle has. Ask people about their memories of the Beetle, and you rarely hear about top speed or horsepower. You hear about the smell, the mix of old fabric, warm vinyl, and a hint of oil. You hear about cold mornings when the engine finally coughed to life and everyone cheered a little. You hear about the cardboard heater, the noisy fan, and the way the car felt on long drives with the windows cracked open. Parents remember packing the trunk, the space behind the rear seats, and every other gap with luggage and bags. Children remember sitting in the back, watching the world go by through small side windows, or standing between the front seats, back when seatbelt rules were looser. For many, the Beetle was not a dream car they saw in magazines. It was the actual car in the driveway, the one that was always there in family photos. In that sense, it carried not just people, but entire chapters of their lives. No design, no matter how beloved, can escape time forever. By the 1970s and 80s, the Beetle began to feel old-fashioned next to newer cars. Safety regulations required different structures. Emissions rules demanded cleaner engines. Customers wanted more space, more comfort, and more modern styling. In some markets, production of the classic Beetle slowed and then stopped. New Volkswagen models took its place in showrooms and advertisements. Yet the Beetle refused to vanish completely. Production continued in countries like Mexico and Brazil, serving as taxis, workhorses, and affordable transport long after its European story had ended. Eventually, even those lines shut down. The last original Beetle rolled off the line, and it felt like watching a long, gentle era come to a close. But the end of production was not the end of the Beetle's life. It simply moved from the new car market into the world of classics. Today, the Beetle lives on in many different roles. Some have been restored to factory-fresh condition, wearing period-correct colors and trim. Others have been modified, lowered suspensions, custom wheels, roof racks, or powerful engines hiding in the back. Some are still used as charming daily drivers, accepting their slow pace in exchange for constant smiles. Beetle clubs organize meets and road trips. Owners trade parts, stories, and tips for keeping these air-cooled hearts beating. At car shows, the Beetle is often surrounded by curious children and nostalgic adults. It may sit next to rare supercars, but it holds its own, not with speed or price, but with warmth. People walk past a row of exotic machines, then stop, point, and say something like, "My father had one of those. My first car was just like this. I learned to drive in a Beetle." That is a kind of value no auction catalog can measure. So why did this little car carry so much of the world? Not because it was perfect. It was noisy, slow by modern standards, and basic inside. But it offered something people needed at the right time: affordability, simplicity, character. It did not pretend to be more than it was. In doing so, it became much more than anyone expected. A tool for rebuilding after war. A first step into car ownership for millions of families. A symbol of freedom, creativity, and gentle rebellion. Even now, decades after its busiest years, the Beetle still appears in parades, road trips, and quiet Sunday drives. The world moved on, but it never quite left the Beetle behind. If this journey into the story of the little car that carried the world touched your own memories, leave a like, subscribe to Timeless Treasures, and tell me in the comments, what is your Beetle story? Did you ride in one, own one, or dream about one? Because somewhere, on a side street or in a small garage, there is probably still a Beetle waiting to carry one more chapter.